Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another wonderful tasting with the Virtual Tasting Society. Today, we're excited to welcome back one of our favorite people in the industry. Joshua Hatton is here joining us to talk about Single Cast Nation. Again, we had him on a few months ago to talk about the online releases, and now we're going to be talking some of the retail line from Single Cast Nation. So we have seven amazing expressions in front of us, as well as the legendary Sam Filmus is on the call with us. He's always present, making time for us, so we appreciate that. But we all know independent bottlers. We some of us are fans and loyal members of Single Cast Nation. But I don't want to step on Joshua's toes too much. For anyone who's here for the first time, I want you to hear it from Joshua himself. He's one of the co-founders of Single Cast Nation, and he's going to be walking us through this extensive lineup. I'm really excited for all of these, so I'm looking forward to tasting them and learning more. Joshua, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit.
Beauty. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It is nice to be back. It was great doing the other tasting, but Vadim, it was sad you not being here. You were gallivanting around Norway, freezing your butt off and drinking fennel drinks or something like that.
I actually found a really amazing single malt in Norway,
Okay.
but yes, they
Mhm.
do have nasty fennel drinks too. That is a thing.
So those of you that don't know, though I see many familiar faces, so I imagine a number of you already know this. Single Cast Nation, we're an independent bottler founded in 2011. Initially started off just selling our bottles online. You became a member. Once you became a member online, you would purchase bottlings from our website and we would ship it to your doorstep. And the last tasting that we did sort of highlighted that aspect of of our business. It wasn't until 2007 when we got access to, quite a bit. Did I say 2007? I think I meant 2017.
Yep.
I'm gonna mess up a lot. Like words are gonna come out of my mouth. They're gonna be wrong. Please correct me as you see fit. I'm gonna get dates wrong. I'm gonna say Glenn something wrong. That's why you guys are here. You're here to help correct me. So in 2017, we got access to a lot more whiskey and because of that, we launched a retail range, and that's what we're going to go into today. But I want to highlight that date, that 2017. And if you think about 2017, what we had access to was a lot of 12-year-old stock. And think about what happened, right? The 1980s, distilleries were shutting down. The whiskey industry really went into the tank. It wasn't until the mid 90s, 1995, the Arran distillery is built. Interest in whiskey starts, there's like green shoots coming out of the ground. Fast forward 10 years, 2005, the Kilchoman distillery comes around. Even more interest in Scotch whiskey. And it's right there where more distilleries are popping up and more people are getting into whiskey. And the faucets within distilleries are turning on. And at that time, distilleries are just making more spirit, putting more spirit into cask. Fast forward 12 years to 2017, and there's a lot more spirit on the market. And independent bottlers like us and like so many others simply had more access to a lot of liquid. So because of that, we saw an opportunity and we seized it. And we added on this retail range of bottlings. 2019, that success continued. We saw even more bottlings, and we got a relationship with Diageo, a direct relationship with them, and started buying not just from brokers but from the distilleries direct. And we were able to hire on Jess Lomas to look after our export markets. So, the UK and Germany and Israel and a little bit of South Africa and Sweden and Japan and so on. And she continues to grow um, those markets. And
But Jess didn't start
and
in 2017. She started fairly
no, no,
new.
no, yeah, like hopefully I said 2019. on that. I
Well,
think I said
she started
2019.
pre-pandemic.
She started September 2019, getting ready to get out on the road. She opened Sweden, she opened Japan, she opened Israel, she opened Germany. We
Well,
had just gotten a cask into South Africa. Like all these things had happened, and then the world shut down.
to be fair though, she
And
was working with you guys well before then. Like, just
uh,
I mean, like was around.
she was a good friend. She
Uh,
was a good friend, but she wasn't working for us. She was doing
yeah,
tastings for us, things like that. But she wasn't, an employee.
going on whiskey geek
Um,
tours with us.
yeah. Um, so correct, yeah, going on Whiskey Geek tours for sure. Then fast forward, we're gonna fast forward to 2024, specifically January 3 of 2024. Um, we had about 100 casks in our warehouse, and and then we're going to fast forward one more day to January 4, 2024. When it became official, we were acquired by Artisanal Spirits Company, who's also the parent company of Scotch Malt Whisky Society. So we became sister brands to Scotch Malt Whisky Society. And we went from having 100 casks in our warehouse to around 17,000 casks in our warehouse. And that was January of last year. We're now sitting at around 20,000 casks in our warehouse. And that keeps on growing. So we have a lot of liquid to choose from, more distilleries, more ages, different cask types. It really has changed it's not changed our process in selection. It's changed A, our access, B, our ability to price. We can now price whiskeys much better than we had before. And we can look at different cask options too. And we're going to be talking about that as we go through some of this range. So let's start with our Royal Broccola. Um, we have a Royal Broccola 9-year-old, and this is the first Royal Broccola that we've ever bottled. I think this is a really good example of a distillery we'd never had access to as two guys who started a business, who'd never started a business before. We were entrepreneurs who had no idea really what we were doing, small fries who bought from a few brokers and the occasional distillery here and there. And once we had access to artisanal spirits warehouses, a slew of new distilleries available to us. Royal Broccola is one of my favorite distilleries, and one of the things that I love about Broccola is their distillate. It's so light and floral and pretty. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight, and Jason really agreed with me on this, was that light floral aspect to this whiskey. So when we were looking at the cask samples, or I should say, when we were looking at the spreadsheet, um, and the casks that were available to us, we wanted to make sure we weren't selecting sherry bombs or things in heavy port casks or anything like that. This whiskey is interesting, right? So it's 9 years old. It spent 7 years in refill bourbon, and then its final 2 years in a second fill bourbon hogshead, which is an unusual finishing cask, right? Usually, your finishing cask is something that's going to be a bit more pronounced. First fill something to breathe more life into that spirit. And I don't think that this spirit needed life. I think it just needed just a little extra push. That's it, just a little extra push to then frame that beautiful floral spirit or floral aspect to the spirit. I imagine everybody here has had Royal Broccola before. Raise your hand if you've not had Royal Broccola before. Okay. So Lana and Henrik and Jane and John.
So
I've had it before, but I've had some that were kind of take it or leave it, nothing special. And then I've had a
Hmm.
couple that were just spectacular, and I'm excited to try this one.
But aren't we upset with them about being big fat liars?
Uh,
You know, it's they got Royal in the name and they don't currently have a Royal warrant. Yeah, sure, they were the first one, but it's, not still valid.
well, I'm not going to get into the weeds there, Benno.
What?
That could be a side conversation.
I
But
thought we
we
were
we
here to get into the weeds.
we've just started.
Not on
We
the
we can't
naming
go down
legality.
rabbit holes on the first whiskey, Benno. You
Fine.
can't start trouble on the first whiskey.
Have you?
Um,
So in talking about the whiskey, so
mm,
Ilana here says it reminds me of her of a dish she makes,
mm,
chicken and grapes, and I think I get a little
mm,
white wine finish on this,
for sure.
um, but yeah, no, it's nice. I don't get the milk chocolate nor the coffee cake that the description says based on Sam's little thing.
Okay.
But, and I'm a big fan of coffee cake, so
Oh, interesting.
I was looking forward to that one, but I didn't get
Yeah,
that yet.
some of it could really be contextual. When we write our tasting notes, they typically tend to be written first thing in the morning. And I would argue, this spirit is kind of light. So depending on what you've had for dinner, that may affect what you're tasting. And I kind of think you're right. Like, I'm not getting those notes either. I'm getting an almost like Riesling, a dry Riesling like character going on with this, which is really nice, but I'm not getting I'm also not getting the notes that you're talking about. So I would suggest, trying this in a different setting. If you still have some left, try it in a
I,
different setting. Wake up
I
tomorrow
put
morning and see what it's like tomorrow morning.
I put a couple of drops of water in, and I tasted that coffee cake.
Mm,
Yeah,
all right. Yeah, give that a go.
for what it's worth.
Yep,
It's got a bit of
handy.
a bit of a muscatel flavor to it with a little water
Mm,
too.
all right.
It's definitely got a sharpness that, yeah, at least without water, like I wouldn't associate with something like the milk chocolate aspect of it.
Mm. Yeah, when we wrote these tasting notes, the milk chocolate was really pronounced. And when we write tasting notes, I think this is important to point out. We don't play with water. When we select casks, we don't use water. Everything is tasted um, completely uncut, and then we just you know select and write tasting notes as is, and then allow people to add water as they like. So I added just about 4 drops to my little pour here.
Can I ask you sort of a tangential question? When you're choosing a cask, how do you clear your palate ahead of time? Do you make sure you don't eat within a few hours? Do you drink a certain amount of water? What's the preparation to make sure you're tasting it from a purist point of view?
So I wake up in the morning. I don't brush teeth. I rinse my mouth and I brew some black coffee, and I'll have some black coffee on the side, and that's it. If you brush your teeth, it's going to ruin your palate. It sounds gross, but it that's when your palate is freshest. So if you give your mouth just a really good rinse, you can just like sort of dry brush your mouth if you want to, but I don't. Jason doesn't either. That really is when your palate is freshest and you're getting the most out of it. Um, yeah, yeah, that is our process.
So lots of morning drinking for me. I'm there with the brother.
Yeah. Um, so adding the water to this, and I'm getting a little bit of coffee cake going on. I'm getting just a little bit of that warm cinnamon coming through on this. And on top of it, it sort of brought out some of the oils as well. I'm getting some of that creamy mouthfeel coming through on this as well.
Hmm.
I see that somebody pointed out in the chat that this was bottled as a 9-year-old, but distilled and bottled same month, 10 years apart. So did they
Yeah,
miss it by a day, or is it more of when you had the delays in bottling because of craziness?
yeah, it was a production issue. We just because of production, we had to bottle before its 10th birthday. So uh technically speaking, month to month it is 10, but actually not technically speaking. Month to month it is 10, but technically speaking it is 9.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and legally speaking it is 9, so we've got to follow the rules. Yeah. So hopefully you guys like this one. We really wanted to honor the spirit of Broccola, um, really highlight that floral quality to it, bring out some of those delicate chocolate notes. The water did bring out the that sort of coffee cake for me. Hopefully, Henrik, it did for you. I don't know if you tried it with water or not. Um,
Oh yeah,
for-
I ended up doing 2 pipettes of water,
okay,
and because it's hot for me,
okay. Well,
Elon kind of she just drinks it kind of like straight up. She's kind of, oh, this is not hot. What the fuck are you talking about? Um, but no, I didn't. I didn't get the coffee cake, but I got the citrus kind of a and I said the white wine
mhm,
kind of a thing, green apple. But yeah, it's
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but I have to credit Jamie knows Siddharth. We did a rare malts tasting with 10 pours of rare malts, and he gave us half an ounce at cast strength and half an ounce watered down to exactly 50%. And
Mhm,
probably 8 out of the 10, and I can't believe I'm admitting this, were better with the water down to 50% because it was too tight and just
mm.
didn't open up
I'm
at like
so proud of you,
16%.
Benno.
Yeah, I know. I can admit when I'm wrong, when
It's nice
percentage of
that we
actual
can
methods.
all grow.
Yes. So,
So glad we have this recorded.
On
yeah,
this
Yeah,
date
right?
in history.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So I'm not opposed. And I mean, you can kind of almost tell, like, if you are smelling it and you're just not getting any much on the nose, if you taste the palate and it's not just like, it may be too much, whatever, it's probably a safe bet to try and add, some water and see how
Mm,
it tastes. So, yeah.
yeah. One thing I wanted to point out before we go on, and I think this is sort of important for those that, may be new to a distillery, right? Because a number of you, raised your hand when I said, if you've never had a Royal Broccola before, if you know Single Cask Nation and you've enjoyed Single Cask Nation whiskeys before and you trust our palates, aside from tasting notes, if you're in a shop and you don't have the tasting notes to hand, what you have on the bottles are what we call our flavometer, and it's just an 8-point system: floral, sweet, rich, nutty, spicy, earthy, smoky, oaky. 1 to 10 point scale as to where those flavors lie, and then sort of just a truncated notes there of sort of the highlight of the flavors that you're going to get there. So you like Single Cast Nation, great. Who's this distillery? I've never had them before. If those if those flavor if the numbers on that flavometer sort of line up with what you think may work for your palate, then that's great. If those notes on there seem to line up, then great. Hopefully that flavometer sort of helps you make a decision while you're standing in the shop. Um, you ready for whiskey number 2?
Let's do it. And the thermometer
Yeah.
never has 0. It's always 1 through 10, right?
Yeah, so one is technically 0.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever like point out on the label of like, hey, right, if I'm a Broccolo lover, but this is totally off profile from Broccolo, do you ever point that out? Like this is on profile or off profile? Because sometimes you're trying to highlight the distillery and it's unadulterated. And I've had some of your expressions, but this is like nothing like their core releases. It's totally different.
No, we we don't necessarily highlight that on the label, but you know, to give you an example, though, we have an Auchentoshan coming out. I don't know when it's going to come out, if I'm being very honest, but we selected it sometime last year, and we think that that Auchentoshan had spent its life in a peated cask because it's incredibly peaty. And I think we gave it like a 4 or 5 for peating. So if you were to pick up that Auchentoshan and you look at it and you see that, then you can clearly see that it's going to be off flavor profile. So if you know the distillery and you look at the flavor, you look at the flavometer, you'll know that it's off profile. And then of course, we will put it in the tasting notes that, oh, there's an odd smoky flavor to it, something like that, but it won't explicitly say, odd smoke. It'll just have the number listed on the
I,
flavometer. Does that
I'll
make
add
sense?
one. I'll add one thing real quick on that because both Alistair and actually Kami were mentioning this, which I hadn't heard before, but they were pointing out that actually it turns out a toasting of oak produces guaiacol, which is one of the phenols. And so when you get peat, apparently, in otherwise non-peated, what should be non-peated whiskeys, it could entirely be a process of the wood and how it was toasted.
Yes.
So
Yep.
I'd
Yeah.
never heard that before, and I always thought people were
Oh.
crazy when they said they tasted peat, in non-peated whiskey. But
Oh yeah. I've been banging that drum for years.
okay,
This is entirely different than that. This is
okay,
peat. Yeah, yeah.
okay.
This is yeah.
What is
This is
that?
this
What is
is
that? What does that note taste like then?
it's not too different than I would argue it's not too different than say when brands like Penderyn do Kelt, or I want to say Loch Lee have Sam, am I correct that Loch Lee have extra matured some of their whiskeys and ex Lafroy casks or something like that?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
distillate has no peat, but they use Lafroy quarter cask and regular bourbon
Yeah.
ex
And
Lafroy
it
casks.
and it's delicious. I might add.
Interesting.
Thanks, Henrik.
A
Yep.
different flavor profile than what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
M&H as well. M&H does that with for a while that was a big portion of their peated. They would extra mature their non-peated stock in ex Lafroy casks, right? And it's clear that that's peat and not,
Yeah. Well, we had
in
an Elgin
F.
last night from '74 at the event with Kami that was aged in ex Lafroy, and yeah, you could definitely
Yeah.
tell.
All right. So we're going to do our Loch Lomond Inchmurrin. For those of you not familiar with the Loch Lomond Distillery, built in 1964, sort of an unusual distillery. It's just outside of Loch Lomond, the actual lake Loch. There you go, Henrik. Nice. Is that the one from the peated casks?
Yeah, that's the fallow
Yeah, there you.
edition.
Oh, the fallow. Yeah,
Yeah.
such a good addition. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Nice. I love what that distillery is doing. Um, so, Loch Lomond, if you're not familiar, built in 1964, just outside of Loch Lomond, the lake, and they've got 14 different types of distillate across 3 different types of stills, across 3 different peating levels on their barley, and 2 to 3 different types of yeast that they use. So, and with these 14 different types of spirit that they produce, they name them after the little islands that are sitting within Loch Lomond. So this one is Inchmurrin, and the Inchmurrin spirit is their unpeated spirit that goes through their standard copper pot stills. And when they distill it, they take really high hearts cuts. They want that sort of lighter, fruitier, more citrusy style of spirit coming through. And this whiskey was matured for the first 11 years of its life in second fill bourbon, and then the final 3 years of its life in a second fill toasted French oak barrique. And you're looking at 54.3% alcohol on this one.
So clarify,
Um,
sorry, Josh, when you say high hearts cuts, what does high mean exactly in this context?
when you think about that spirit as it comes off the still, when you have your four shots, your hearts and your feints, or heads, hearts, and tails, the hearts are completely subjective. So if you if you choose your hearts cut closer to when that spirit first starts coming off the stills, you have your lighter, more volatile, chemical compounds coming through. If you choose your hearts cuts closer to the tails, you have your heavier compounds coming through. That's why, like, if you taste Lafroig, which, the peating level on Lafroig is about 35 ppm, and that feels like a super heavy peated spirit compared to, say, Kilhoman, which is 50 ppm, which doesn't feel nearly as peated. That's because Lafroig takes their hearts cut closer to what Kilhoman would consider their tails, right?
Yep.
So with Loch Lomond, they're taking their hearts cut closer to what a lot of people would consider, their four shots, or their heads. So
So
they
they're
want
starting
their
it
lighter.
earlier. They're starting it earlier.
Exactly.
That's what high.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly. Yep. 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 Yep.
Okay, and what term did you use for that? High heart?
High.
Yeah,
High heart.
so they're a
High
high
heart means
cut.
closer to the head, and low heart
Close.
means closer to the tail.
Right.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
correct.
That's great.
Correct.
Good to
Yep.
know that
Yeah.
terminology.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So knowing
So
that would lead me to believe that the spirit would come off at a higher proof than in the opposite scenario. And so do they barrel at a higher proof, or do they still bring it down to 63.5, which is the
no, correct. Yeah, they still bring it down to 63.5 because, I mean, that's industry standard, 63.5.
but it's not a law. So in Scotland they can kind of do whatever.
It's not a law, but you need to think about um not just what this distillery was set up to do, but what most distilleries are set up to do, to create liquid to go into a blend. And most of these distilleries are sharing liquid. And it makes sense if everybody's filling it 63.5%. And if everybody has the same angel share, it just makes sense. They can evenly swap spirit because, for the most part, it costs about the same for this distillery to produce as it does for this distillery. And if there's variance, they can figure it out and even out the trades as they see fit. When it comes to the Loch Lomond distillery, they were purpose built to be a distillery to make liquid to go into blends. So 63.5% was standard for them. A really interesting distillery in that they can also create their own blend because, as I mentioned before, they've got three different types of stills. So they've got their copper pot stills, which that's where this one came from. Then they have their Lomond stills, which sort of look like sort of a an angular version of a copper pot still, and the neck has plates that they can activate if they want to. And
Isn't it
then they
like a
have
hybrid column still, basically, with those rectifying plates?
it's sort of like, yeah, it can be used as a column still if they want to. If, like, the Brooklady still, the Ugly Betty is a Loman still.
Mm.
And then they have column stills. So they're producing single malt and they're producing single grain. So they can make their own blend.
Single blend.
Yeah, single blend. And here's the other cool thing. They are using malted barley to go through all of their stills. So they're using malted barley to go through their columns. And even it goes through the columns, it's still single grain, even though it's malted barley. So their blends are really heavy, really big, and really rich. So if you like this one, please buy it. Please, support the store, support Single Cast Nation, support Impacts, feed my wife and kids, do all that stuff. But check out Loch Lomond's own bottlings. They're single grain, they're blends, they're doing a lot of really cool stuff. It's a distillery that's odd and interesting, and if you like odd and interesting, they're a fun rabbit hole to go down.
Isn't Craft and Gay their peated spirit?
Yeah, that's one of them, Croft and Gaia. It's kind of like
So is the
it's in
Inchmont.
like the Lechig wheelhouse. Yeah, yeah. Inchmoan's another one. Inchmo. So Croft and Gaia is very Lechig like, and Inchmoan is almost. Well, I'll be very honest. I've only had two Inchmoans in my life, and they've been almost Lafroig like. Yeah, very very interesting spirit. How did we like this one? I see nods. I see smiles.
This one just, goes on forever. Yeah, I mean, this is really
You,
great.
you know
I'm
what this one
enjoying
is
this.
for me? This one is a ruby red grapefruit cut in half with a little sugar on it. It's all grapefruit. It's like grapefruit in the morning. I absolutely love this one.
How well do they clean their stills between runs when they do peating and non-peating, I wonder?
I don't know. Yeah, are you getting peat on this?
No, not
Because this is
necessarily.
from a toasted oak cask, so
I think they have still that they run just the peat. They have so many they don't have to mix.
yeah, I cannot answer that question, but I'm not detecting any peat. I am getting a savory quality to this, but I think what we're getting here is you're getting that toasted French oak,
Hmm.
right? So you're getting some of that earthy kind of spice coming through.
This one's I don't know if anyone else is feeling this, but I'm having a hard time with it because there's a lot that I like at the high proof, but there's a little spice and bite at the back end that I'm not enjoying. And I put a little bit of water and it's starting to get thin. And so I'm trying to I added a little bit more from the sample to try and bring it back. And it's just riding that line of being a little too thin or being a little too
Oh,
hot.
interesting. Interesting. Yeah, this is so I would argue that it's not necessarily heat. This is French oak, and that French oak is going to bring a good amount of spice into it. And I think what could be happening is your palate is reacting to that spice. You could just have a bit more
Yeah.
sensitivity to that French oak spice coming through.
It feels like like big red chewing gum.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about.
What did you say the barrels were in this one, Josh?
So second fill bourbon, and then for 11 years, and then 3 years in a toasted French oak barrique. And
Interesting.
this will not have held wine either. This is just toasted virgin oak.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, because I think maybe what Brent's picking up on and I'm picking up, and maybe I'm getting better now, is like I'm getting a little bit of like what I not quite, but a little acridity, and I think that might be the sharpness maybe you're talking about from French oak, especially the virgin French oak. And I kind of picked that up on certain Port Charlotte wine finishes, which I think now that I
Mm,
think about it are like also French oak finishes. And so, that's super interesting.
yeah, could be just a French oak thing.
Yeah, interesting. I'm gonna have to
Yeah, I don't
start.
know if I've ever had a virgin French oak.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, are we ready to move on to the next one to maybe some more familiar territory?
Let's move on to Linquid. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel sorry for you, Vadim, that you have some linguid.
I know, poor me.
This one is nice.
Only 61.2%.
Yeah, and this is just 12 years first fill bourbon. Like this is just as straight as it comes.
You mean the basic whiskey?
Right? Unadulterated.
Joshua, not to throw whiskey
Nah,
on fire, but
look at that.
just when's that
There you
happen?
go.
He's pandering to the audience.
Pretty sure
Yeah, I don't know when the Jubilee is going to happen. Here's what I'll say. The Jubilee is not dead, but I don't know when it's going to happen again. Both Jason and I would love for it to return.
You keep saying
But
that, but you never make it happen.
okay. I don't know what else to say, but
You can't say nothing else till you make it happen. So there
we're
you
here
go.
to help. If we can help, we're here to help.
Yeah.
Right.
How can we, we're individuals of means and skills and no time, but we'll figure it out. If you need help, reach out. We got a crew. Yeah.
let's talk about Linkwood. All right, but raise your hand if you've never had a Linkwood before. Yeah. Seriously, Trent, you've never had a Linkwood before? Alana, you've never had a Linkwood before? This is amazing. All right. Okay, cool. I'm so happy to introduce you to your first Linkwood. Awesome. So just a quick history on the distillery. It's owned by Diageo, which is sort of a funny statement. I feel like you can say, well, you can say that about 29 Scotch whiskey distilleries. It's owned by Diageo, who owns Johnny Walker, right? They basically want to own every distillery so that they can put it all into Johnny Walker. But it really is, it's a backbone to a lot of their blends because it's so consistent. It's just consistently good. Um, they do not have their own bottlings. Typically, the only way you can traditionally find a Linkwood bottling would have been through a Gordon MacPhail bottling, and Gordon MacPhail has a label that actually looks like a distillery's own label. Like if you were to pick up a bottle of Linkwood and it looks like a distillery's label, if you look close, it says Gordon MacPhail on it. So the distillery doesn't have their own bottling. Traditionally, it's been an independent bottler's bottling of Linkwood. So it was the only way you can get it is through one of us. We've bottled this Linkwood as sort of an access point to, let me rewind. We've bottled this particular Linkwood to highlight what we thought the distillery does best. It's sort of like what they do on steroids, if you will. If you've ever seen, have you seen Spinal Tap, Ilana? Right? This goes to 11. That's what this cask is. So this is just a 12-year-old whiskey, all 12 years in a first fill bourbon cask. So we made bourbon. Once we were done maturing that bourbon in the cask, we sent it off to the Scots. The Scots put their spirit into that cask, matured the spirit for 12 years. We bottled that whiskey, put it in the bottle, and now we're drinking it. 61.2% alcohol. This is just a dream in a glass.
What proof did they bottle it that you could get it after 12 years? 61.2.
Hold on. I'm just enjoying this.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's so
Having a
good.
moment, leave them alone.
Oh, it's so malty. It's biscuity. There's like lemon curd going on, white pepper. Oh, I love this bottling. Um, right. So sorry, was that Kate asking the question? So typically they're going to bottle at 63.5% alcohol. That really is industry standard. Occasionally, distilleries will bottle higher. There are a few distilleries that bottle higher just sort of as a matter of course. Like Tamdu Distillery, historically speaking, bottles at sort of 70, 71% alcohol. Glenfarclas has had periods where they will fill at around 70, 71% alcohol. Sometimes when there are shortages of wood or if casks are too expensive, the distilleries will fill at a higher ABV. But for the most part, they are filling at 63.5%. Now, typically speaking, year over year, you have an average angel share of about 1.7% alcohol. So at 12 years of age, this should have been around 57, 59% alcohol. The fact that this is 61.2% alcohol makes me think that this cask may have been in a palletized warehouse or in a racked warehouse, sitting sort of higher up. So it may have been losing water rather than alcohol, and so the alcohol sort of stayed a little higher. I don't think that this is a case where they filled at a higher ABV. If they filled at a higher ABV, I think this would have been closer to like 65, 66% alcohol, something like that.
Okay, so it's just a matter of where that cask was in the
Exactly. Yeah.
warehouse kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Because
Okay, because it's
exactly
a
because
it's odd that it's only dropped what 2.3%
it
alcohol
it it
over
isn't
12
too
years.
it isn't too odd if you understand Diageo's warehouses. So most of their warehouses are in Alloa, which is just outside of Glasgow. And they're just these massive warehouses where all of the casks are just stacked up on pallets. Some of them are on racking systems, and they are just making all of the use of all of the space. And so quite often these casks will they just won't lose alcohol or lose volume the same way they would if they were stored in a traditional dunnage warehouse where it's just three high, in like a
Right.
dirt floor or something like that.
Got it. Okay. And
Yeah.
is Diageo storing all their casks there, or are they storing the casks from Linkwood in the Linkwood warehouse
Almost,
and then
almost all. Almost all. No, not all. I mean, a lot of their distilleries will have casks on site,
right.
but a number of them, you know, a number of them will basically the they'll run the spirit and they'll take the spirit, put it into tankers, drive the tankers down to Alloa or down to Glasgow, and they'll fill casks there and then store the casks in the warehouses, right down there.
So the question though is, it could a Linkwood cask be sitting right next to a cask from another distillery?
Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, like
Okay, because it's just
yeah.
whatever Diageo's got, they put them in the same place. Oh, I
Linkwood could
didn't.
be sitting next to Lagavulin or Kalila or Blair Athol or
So
any of
so
these. Yep.
okay, so now I'm going to ask a dumb question, but probably a lot of people have the same question. It's like, is there any play between the casks then? Especially let's say if it's a Linkwood or an unpeated cask sitting next to a very highly peated cask, could there possibly be any play between those casks at all? Influence,
No,
you know what I'm
Cross
getting.
no, I don't think there would be any of that.
Okay.
They're not airtight, but they surely are liquid tight. I'll give you one example. All right, and I think this is a very good example. Years ago, I was on the Isle of Arran, and I was speaking with James McTaggart, who I don't know if he's at the distillery anymore. But anyway, and I was talking with him about his spirit because they used to say, there's like this salinity to their spirit. And I asked him, I said, where does that salinity come from? And he said, well, our marketing department would tell you is because we're on an island and the water is lapping up and everything like that. I can tell you, I don't know where the fuck it comes from. Our barrels are in a warehouse. It's protected from the air and the sea. It just is what it is. We just make the whiskey and we're happy it's in there. So, you know, when Kalila makes their whiskey or Lagavulin makes their whiskey, that whiskey is not maturing on Isla. It's maturing just outside of Glasgow,
Yep.
but it still tastes of Isla because they're peating that barley with Isla peat, right? But then the liquid stays in cask, right? So the environment with which it matures isn't impacting the flavor of the whiskey like it would in Kentucky. You know, bourbon is a different story because we have such dramatic fluctuations in in our environment. They don't have that in Scotland. um the sort of a longer answer to your question, but yeah, you're not going to get any interplay between, say, a liquid and a Lagavulin sitting next to each other.
I mean, once it's vapor, there's no way to suck that vapor back into the cask, right? It's only reacting with the wood, right? There's no like
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. And I suppose the other thing too is, I mean, if it did have an interplay,
Mhm.
well, they wouldn't be doing it, right? Because they wouldn't want to influence necessarily the other whiskeys. So
Yeah.
okay, but
Yep.
thanks for that.
Yep. Yeah, sure. Oh
And
boy.
only 162 bottles, so I guess your theory on losing water and not alcohol is the right.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. I hadn't even thought about that, but thank you, Galan.
And
So when
I
you
have
talk
another
about it
question.
being,
Is in general always the cast stay in Diageo and you guys take it just before filling, or you have your own warehouse or your own storage? When you
So
talk about the 20,000 barrels that you have access to.
that's a good question. So there's two warehouse, I should say three warehouses. So in Scotland, there's two warehouse facilities. There's one that we own that houses about 3,500, maybe about 4,000 casks, I think. That number is going to be a little squishy. About 4,000 casks, and that's connected to our bottling hall. And then we have a third party warehouse that we work with that houses the remainder of our casks. And that'll be our Scotch whiskey, our rums, and some other sort of odds and ends. So those are two of our warehouses. And then we have another third party warehouse and third party bottling hall in California that we use for our American spirits. And so, sorry, and to further answer your question, we get it in a few different ways. So sometimes we're buying the casks already matured. Sometimes we're buying the casks quite young and re-racking, depending on how we receive those casks. If the liquid needs to be re-racked, we'll re-rack it. If we like the direction it's going in, we'll just let it mature as is. But then we also have filling contracts with a number of distilleries. So we'll take on the spirit itself and fill it into our own wood as well. So we have it going on a number of different ways.
What would you define as a filling contract?
So right, so l- let's say we've got and I'm just going to pull names out of the sky because I actually don't know the distilleries that we have filling contracts with. Let's say we have a contract with the Macallan. We do not have a contract with the Macallan. Again, I am pulling names out of the sky.
What
So
is
we've
that?
got
I've never heard of that.
we've got a contract with Brora,
There
where
you
we
go.
take on 20,000 liters of spirit from them, and we fill our own casks with that spirit, right? So they may sell us just the unaged spirit, and then we fill our own casks with that. Does that make sense? Yeah, which I quite like, right? Because it's similar to what Gordon MacPhail has done for years, which I think is so great. It puts you fully in charge of the direction of the flavor profile of your whiskey, and the quality of your whiskey. So I don't know when that program started. I know it's something that we'd been looking to expand. So it's something that I'm really excited for. So
Without being pedantic, that's got to be an interesting contract because the parameters of that, the limitations of that, the requirements of that have got to be, it's got to be a 20-page discussion at least. Or maybe
what
it's
do you
just,
mean?
well, I would think that if you were taking someone's distillate and filling it into your own cask, they would, even if you were not naming it, they would have certain parameters and certain requirements with how you do it, or is it just a matter of trust? You know, they know you, they like you, you've been doing this a long time, you obviously make amazing spirits, and it just they let you.
It's the
You
latter.
it's the
It's entirely the latter, right? And
much
that's how
better.
the industry has worked, right? So we
Right.
will make spirit for you, and the contract is either yes, you can use the name, or no, you can't use the name. And if the distillery has different makes, right? Again, back to the Loch Lomond example where they have 14 different types of spirit that they make, we may have access to different types of spirit, and we may or may not have the ability to use those names with that
Interesting.
final product. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. We ready for so first off, for the first time Linkwood drinkers, how are we digging Linkwood?
I'm digging it.
You're digging it. Good. If you weren't digging Linkwood, then I'd be nervous for you because it's hard to not like Linkwood. It's just a solid, solid spirit.
That's a winner.
Yeah. Winner, winner, chicken dinner,
Indeed.
tofu dinner.
Oh,
All
oh,
right. Are we ready to hit the center of the tasting, or Strathclyde?
Let's go a little darker.
Yeah. Cool.
For those of you listening to this at home and not seeing color, we're going to do the dark one now.
Vadim, man.
Missing
And
guess on this.
we're not only changing colors because it is quite a bit darker, right? Does everybody agree this is a darker whiskey than the other one? We're changing spirits. We're going from single malt Scotch whiskey to single grain Scotch whiskey. So here are the differences for those of you that don't know, right? So first off, what is single malt Scotch whiskey? Single malt Scotch whiskey is simply whiskey, right? What's whiskey? A spirit made from grain. What's Scotch? It is whiskey made in Scotland, right? So when someone says, "Have you tried that new Japanese Scotch?" you get to quietly laugh at them internally, and then,
Punch them in the
politely tell them that only the Scots make Scotch. Malt simply refers to the fact that it's made from malted barley, and single just simply means that it was made at one distillery. Sing, Single grain Scotch whiskey. Oh, and it was distilled through copper pot stills. That's very, very, very important. Single grain Scotch whiskey is whiskey made in Scotland from any grain, and it could be malted barley at a single distillery. But the key point here is that it's been put through column stills rather than pot stills. Did you, Vadim, did you put some pictures of stills in the chat here before?
Yeah, I pulled Loch Lomond stills earlier.
Would you mind popping in there some column stills?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because if
So
Are the
is it
copper-
always the differentiation of column to pot, or is it
Right.
could it also be the grain? If they did like Powers did grain like rye in a pot still, would it be single grain, or is it now a new thing?
So you could do malted rye through a copper pot still, and it can be single malt Scotch whiskey, but there is an addition to it where it will say rye. There's a distillery called, I think it's Arbiki, that does single malt rye Scotch whiskey. Yeah, here we
Actually,
go.
a better example would be like the Bruichladdich did that with their regeneration.
I'm not familiar with that product, but yeah,
Does
so
the
here you go.
Sorry,
Does
not
the
better example
column
for you, better
still,
example for me to say.
does it matter what metal the column still is made out
No,
of?
no,
So
it doesn't matter.
in Scotland,
So,
it doesn't matter.
so here's the thing. Most stills are going to be using copper because copper cleans the spirit. It removes
Right.
sulfuric compounds. Um, so once that spirit goes through a column still, it stops being malt whiskey and becomes grain whiskey, even if malted barley goes through that column. That is a Scotch Whiskey Association rule. So, yeah. So here's the interesting thing. That's somewhat new. Loch Lomond Distillery has a spirit called Ross Dew, and I have an old bottling somewhere on these shelves where it used to be called single malt Scotch whiskey. They changed that. It's now single grain Scotch whiskey.
But it's really
Anyway,
their column still.
yeah. Anyway. Strathclyde is single grain Scotch whiskey, and this does have a mash bill. It is not malted barley. This is 10, well, there is 10% malted barley in this, but 90% corn. And this will have spent the first 15 and a half years of its life in refill bourbon, and the last 2.5 years of its life in so this is going to be interesting, in an American oak STR barrique. So there's a lot going on here. An STR barrique. STR is simply you take a cask that really isn't offering up anymore, right? It's not providing any flavor to a spirit anymore. You open it up and then you shave, toast, and then rechar the inside of that cask to reactivate the wood. So, that cask will have held wine in it before. So you shave it, you access the wine line, then you toast it and rechar it, and you're crystallizing the wine sugars that are going on in there, right? And it's American oak, and you've got corn in here, and it's been distilled in a column still. But this is really as close to like Scottish bourbon as you will get. It really, like when we thought about this bottling, let me say it this way. Jason and I are Scotch whiskey guys through and through, and we're always trying to bring bourbon people into the fold. And
Yummy.
bourbon folk dig in their heels. And we're always like, come on over. You could do it. Come on. And so this is the bridge. This is the bridge to the bourbon bros that there is Scotch whiskey that you like. And so this is the hook. So I'm going to give this one a little pour. And I want to talk a little history. Oh, go ahead. Someone was going to say
So
something,
this,
and then I'll talk
yeah,
history.
so definitely the corn comes through on this.
Yeah.
You get this, a bigger, I called it lip smacking flavor,
Yeah.
right? Which is kind of closer to bourbon than Scotch. Scotch is typically more subtle. But what's interesting about this is that it's aged in Scotland. So it has a different interaction with the oak because of the climate that it's being aged in.
Yeah.
So this, I wonder if you took, Jack Daniels and you shipped it off to Scotland to age, what the difference would be like.
So I can tell you firsthand.
That exists. Yeah.
It
Yeah,
exists.
I think it. I think I just heard about it like a few weeks ago too. Actually, now that I say
Yeah,
it.
bottled something like that.
Yeah, we bottled a 24-year-old bourbon that spent 12 years maturing in Kentucky and 12 years maturing in Scotland. And it was soft and
Yeah.
pretty and
That's
delicate.
so cool.
And
And
it ended up, we bottled it at the natural strength of 47.4% alcohol. If it had matured 24 years in Kentucky, it probably would have been like, 80% alcohol, or something ridiculous like that. Um, and it was just a horse of a different color. And for me, I I have a real tough time with tannins, a really tough time with tannins. So when we start, looking at bourbons at a higher age,
Yep.
the wood starts to blow out my palate.
24-year orphan
So
barrel, that's just like, well,
what's that, Benno?
24-year-old orphan barrel, like where it's
Oh
just
yeah, yeah,
all.
exactly. No, it doesn't work. Not for me at least.
Yep.
So, right, so you get this STR cast that is very active, but it's a lighter touch, right? Which is cool and definitely works for my palate here.
I mean, it's the STR really that's doing all the heavy lifting and making it
Mhm.
more like a bourbon, right? Like it's much closer to that,
Yeah,
freshly charred cask you're using for bourbon than any of the
yeah,
refilled casks you use normally for Scotch or grain
yeah.
whiskey.
I got to ask, what is this? You mentioned the 24-year-old bottled. What is this available? Is it
Oh
around?
no, no, no. That sold. We had 2,400 bottle. No, oh, no, sorry. Take that back. 1,200 bottles came to the US. 300 bottles were sold outside the US. We sold it for $295, and I think it sold out in 30 minutes.
Well, thank you for telling us about that.
We told people when it came out. It
This was a few
was
years ago. This was a couple of years ago.
it was a
Oh,
it
it's just
was
a while ago. I thought this was like 2 weeks ago.
No,
Sorry.
no,
you're
no,
good.
no, 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 no. It was pre-fire distillery I can't mention.
Mm.
There it is.
Yeah.
So I think it was. I won't name the other whiskey, but there was a distillery in Scotland that sent a cask to. I think it was Jack Daniels. I don't know if it's Jack Daniels. And then Jack Daniels sent a cask to that whiskey distiller in Scotland, and the distiller in Scotland hung on to the cask for X number of years. I don't know how many. And then of course the bourbon, whatever bourbon it was in Kentucky, they took the Scottish cask, they just drank it right away. And but the distiller in Scotland aged the bourbon in Scotland. And when they finally poured it, put it into bottles and bottle it, was just spectacular, spectacular. And they're like, I wish they would have done that with our Scotch, but what's the point of trying to age Scotch in Kentucky? Like, I don't think that's going to work really well.
I don't know. I
Oh,
think it could be fun.
Yeah.
Think about what's going on right now. There's loads of American single malt producers that I think are doing a phenomenal job um, producing some great spirit. Look at Balcones producing spirit down in Waco, Texas. I think they're making some really great stuff, dealing with some insane,
Yeah.
some insane climate. Um, right? It depends
Actually,
on
But
what you're going after.
yeah,
right,
including Jack Daniels themselves, right? Jack Daniels is releasing single malt.
Yeah.
And
But
it's pretty good.
but I think
I think.
they're aging then for a shorter amount of time, right?
Sure.
Yeah, and maturing in new charred oak, which,
Yeah.
right, with
Yeah.
with Scotch whiskey, typically speaking, they're not doing new charred oak.
Yeah. But this
Yeah.
particular distiller, I think the whiskey would have been way too soft to stand up to the aging in in Kentucky. I mean, that's
Would you guys
my, go ahead.
would you guys ever consider bringing a barrel over to your California warehouse from Scotland?
So here's the problem. I mean, yes, we'd love to, but by Scotch whiskey laws, to be called single malt Scotch whiskey, it has to be distilled, matured, and bottled in Scotland. And that bottled in Scotland aspect of the law went into law October of 2013. So yeah, if you had asked me that question 12 years ago, then
Yeah.
I would have had a different answer.
Quick question for you. Does
Yeah.
the higher sugar content in bourbon react differently to the aging in Scotland? So if you were to age, perhaps this is off the cuff, but if you were to age bourbon in Scotland, what's the profile difference based upon the high sugar content of, candy?
Man, I don't know if I can really answer that question intelligently for
That's
you.
something to explore. Yeah, and never gotten a straight answer on this one because it doesn't really exist.
Yeah, because I don't know about the sugar differences between malt and bourbon. I think from a spirit perspective, there is no sugar difference. I think there will be a sugar difference from the charred wood versus the used wood. And I think that's going to be it's the wood sugar difference. But I can't really answer that question for you. So I'm not even gonna try. I won't even make something up. All right. Are we ready to move on?
That
So,
was very candy sweet. That was a
you
nice
said with
little
the
sugar
mash
break in
bill,
the middle.
what was the
What's
mash
that?
bill on this
Oh,
one?
right. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Oh, it was, and I wanted to give you guys a little bit of history too, because I think that this is really cool actually. So the mash bill on this with the Strathclyde is 10% malted barley, 90% corn. And sort of the cool aspect about this, because when was this distilled? This was distilled in 2005. Um,
A lot of malted barley, right?
no, 10% is has been sort of industry standard. But the thing with grain distilleries is it's important to think about what they've been built to do. They've been built to produce cheap grain spirit to get to about 3 years old to go into someone's shitty blend. That's it. Grain spirit to go into crap wood, to be filler to go into someone's crappy blend. So a business person, when they're traveling, goes to a hotel. When they're traveling, they're at their hotel and they go to the hotel bar and they say, "Give me a scotch on the rocks," right? That's what a grain distillery is meant to do. So they need to make the cheapest spirit possible. Up until and through to the end of 1984, all of these grain distilleries were doing about 10% malted barley, 90% corn. In 1985, things sort of changed. The cost of corn went up, and the cost of wheat came down a little bit. And so almost all of these distilleries changed their mash bill to 10% malted barley, 90% wheat. It changed the flavor profile, it changed the weight of the spirit, and Strathclyde was the only distillery that I'm aware of that kept the mash bill despite the increased cost of the grain. And I really like that. I really appreciate that about them. It's made me seek out their spirit when I'm looking at casks. Not that it makes me think less of these other distilleries, but it's always kind of that thing that I'm like, I kind of like that. It's like my favorite bands who they get signed to a major label, but they still write good music, right? They haven't totally sold out. I'm like, oh, I'll still buy their albums. So I really appreciate that about them. They stuck to their guns and they're still doing what they've always done. Um, yeah, that's it. Just a cool bit of history that I've always dug.
So
All right.
when a single grain distillery in Scotland, are they allowed to add enzymes to get the fermentation process going if they're not using barley?
Well, they are using barley, right? That's why they use 10% malted barley.
But what about the
Now,
ones that use wheat?
no, they're using 10% barley.
Okay, got it. So
Yep.
they're not allowed to use enzymes.
It's 90-10. I'll be very honest. I don't know if there is a law against using enzymes. I just know there's always that 90-10 split of malted barley to other grain.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, I was
let's
gonna
go
say
on.
corn
Yeah.
whiskey, basically, right? From that mash bill.
Basically, yeah, it's totally corn whiskey. All right, let's move on to the Black Spoke Bridge.
What a name.
I want to make sure that I'm pouring the right one. I may have grabbed the wrong one, which is okay. Which one do you have?
57.3.
Oh, I've got the right one. Cool. All right, this is the 13-year-old. So it is an interesting name. I think it was Matt. You brought up an interesting point about distilleries allowing you or not allowing you to use the distillery name. And in this case, the distillery will not allow us to use their name. So there is no distillery named Black Spoke Bridge. If you went to Google Maps and you looked up Black Spoke Bridge, you will see that there's a bridge called Black Spoke Bridge that goes over the River Spey within the Speyside region of Scotland.
Like
And
Glenfarclas.
what's that?
It tastes like Glenfarclas.
It does, doesn't it?
A bit.
Yeah, there you go.
Is it
I,
Glenfarclas?
I don't know. I call them Glen litigious. You can call them what you like to call them.
You can't say, but it rhymes with Farkless.
Okay.
Yes, it's a distillery that we're not allowed to really call out by name. We don't put them on the label. There's only been one independent bottler that's been able to put them on their label, and that's actually been Single Cask Nation. But that's been on an older bottling under a different contract.
Double
But under
cast.
this, and that was a double cask nation.
Yep.
But under this contract, we are not allowed to use the name, and it's sort of a cool story here, right? So when we get this liquid, it's purchased not as a sherry cask; it's purchased as a first fill bourbon cask, which I think is kind of cool, right? And this is sort of, and Matt, this is getting back to your question. I mean, sort of, right? It's sort of getting to your question here, right? Where you've got a distillery that A wants to protect their name, but B, in a way, wants to protect their flavor profile. If we think about this distillery that you named, I didn't, they are known for selling their whiskeys matured in sherry casks. That's what they do. And they do it really, really, really well. I can't think of I can't think of a bottling that they've released that hasn't been in sherry casks. Very few and far between, maybe some family casks here and there, right? But when they sell spirit for blends or for bottlings or bottlers or what have you, they sell it on in bourbon casks in a different flavor profile, not in sherry. So when we received it in first fill bourbon. Then we took that liquid after 8 years of maturation, put it into a first fill Oloroso sherry hogshead. This will have been, well, Actually, I don't know the kind of wood on this one. So interestingly enough, when we look at our spreadsheets of what's in our warehouse, sometimes we know the type of wood that held the sherry. Sometimes it's American oak, sometimes it's European oak, and sometimes it's Spanish oak. We have a lot of Spanish oak sherry casks in our warehouse.
Spanish oak.
But what's that?
I very much think this is Spanish oak, and you say pure sherry, which makes me think not Glenfarclas, makes me think Glendronach. But
I can tell you that this is not Glendronach.
okay, all right.
I can tell you it's the other one that you mentioned.
Yeah, the flavor profile immediately was Glenfarclas, but the pure pure semantics of your discussion with sherry, I'm like, oh, come on, that's Rachel. I mean, pre-Rachel, okay, fine, but still, anyway, I'll let you keep talking. Sorry.
But so here's the thing. When we know the type of oak that's being used, we will put it on our label, right? So
It said
first
first
fill,
Oloroso.
yeah, first fill Oloroso, but right. So here's the difference. In our next whiskey, we say first fill Spanish oak Oloroso. So
Interesting.
when we know the type of wood, we put it on our label. We want like full transparent. We always want to be as transparent as possible. So if on our spreadsheets it doesn't specify the type of oak, we won't specify the type of oak. We may like take a stab in the dark and try to figure out what it is. But we never know for sure. So, Matt, you're like nosing it and tasting it, and you may say this tastes like Spanish oak, and I may agree with you, but we'll never know for certain.
It's like Fender guitars in the 90s. You didn't know what sort of wood they had. You hoped it was something a little more reliable than something out of the 80s, but it was the wood of the guitar, just you never knew until the 2000s.
See,
And
that's why I stuck with 70s Fenders.
now I thought those
Right?
were Rickenbackers. I put a note in there. I
No,
can't see.
dude, that's a 73 Fender Jazz bass.
My
Well, to
God.
be honest, then that's a 97 Noel Redding model Jazz. That is a Healy bass made custom for me, and that's a Teisco Del Rey fretless 67 bass.
I have a 70s Univox bass hollow body violin that
Sorry, everybody.
I
Yep.
love it. Sorry, getting on topic, but
Hey, we want a jam session in the end.
Wait,
We
so
want a
do you
jam
play
session.
jazz then?
So is the
Are you
it's
playing purely jazz?
What's that?
Are you playing purely jazz?
Oh no. That's just the
That's
the
just the
the
model.
shape of the bass is just called jazz. That's it's
it's
not
it's
it's not
because
for
it's the
jazz.
best shape of the bass.
Yeah,
Warwick
yeah,
ones too.
yeah.
That's I,
Um, Here, let's get back to the whiskey at hand.
sorry about that.
Um, yeah, no worries. So Black's Boat Bridge. Um, so again, 8 years in first fill bourbon, 5 years in first fill Oloroso sherry. So where they're selling us the liquid in bourbon, getting us away from their flavor profile. We're putting it in sherry, trying to get back to the flavor profile. Like in a way, we're doing what we're trying to do with the Linkwood, which is trying to highlight what that distillery does best. It's really difficult to like stray from that spirit character. When I first got into this distillery, it's because of what they do with their sherry casks. It's because their spirit really shines in sherry. Having said that, there were two shop exclusives that we've done that are Black's Boat Bridge that were first fill bourbon. Neither of them ship, I don't think. One was for Chicago, and then one was for a place called Baxis. And what was so beautiful about those two first fill bourbon casks is you could still taste the distillery spirit character even in bourbon. And I think that was so fantastic. Yeah, and really surprising because I'd never experienced this distillery's own distillate just in bourbon. So that was a nice surprise. But this one really for Jason and I, it ticked the boxes. It was doing everything we wanted the distillery's own spirit to be doing. It had that beautiful texture going on. It was gingerbread, it was fruit cake, it was all like the Christmas cakes. I mean, I say this as a Hanukkah celebrating Jew. It was all the Christmas cakes. Um, it was everything that you could want from this distillery.
Josh, you might be
And that
surprised that this is
texture.
the first time I've had Glenfarclas.
Really?
Say the name.
Is
This
this
is
your
a
first?
Glenfarclas for a first time. This is an unbelievable winner.
It's an awesome one.
It's
This is right
glorious.
down home plate.
That's
I would have
awesome.
Black's Boat Bridge is
every
delicious.
Yes. Listen to Vadim.
That's great
Jesus,
to
I mean,
hear.
this
the
is the
price too.
first time I've had an unnamed distillery.
Great. There you go. It's got a name.
L'chaim. Oh, good lord.
Okay, there you go. One of the things that I hope you uh, guys and gals, and I do apologize, um, have noticed throughout this tasting, and I apologize. I really should have pointed it out from the beginning because this is something Jason and I really focus on. Um, we've tasted now 5 whiskeys that have all been totally different. Hopefully, you guys agree that these have been, 5 completely different whiskeys, and we're about to taste 2 more that will be quite a bit different than the first 5. But there should be a thread through the 5 is that we're looking for a heavy spirit. We're looking for an oily spirit, an unctuous spirit. We're texture guys that we like to, we want our whiskeys to have a nose, a palate, and a finish that makes sense, right? Like it's like a good book, right? I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. That has to have a good beginning, middle, and end. You're reading Lord of the Rings and Boba Fett comes down in the Millennium Falcon. A, why is Boba Fett flying the Millennium Falcon? B, what's he doing in Middle Earth? Like that doesn't make sense. The flavor notes need to make sense in your whiskey. A and B, if your whiskey is thin and burning your mouth, it shouldn't be. You should have that nice rich texture. So hopefully you're getting that in all of these whiskeys. And I'm so glad from the Linkwood that this was a first for people, that you're loving that. And then now with this Black's Boat Bridge, this has been a first for a few of you, and you're loving that too. This really makes me happy. And the Royal Broccoli too. This has been great. I do a number of tastings for whiskey geeks, and sometimes it's rare where you say, "Hey, have you had this distillery?" And everybody says, "Yes, I've had this distillery before. This is now my 17th Royal Broccoli." And you say, "Oh, okay." And they're like, "Yes, this one is also good." But it's nice to be able to introduce people to their first ever. So, Trent, I'm really glad that this was your first, and it's been a good experience for you.
Josh is all about popping those cherries.
There you go. You're so
Hey,
fresh,
Josh,
Benno.
how
Yeah.
how come these whiskeys aren't available on your website?
So that's a very good point. So we like to keep
Read the
separation
room.
of church and state at all times. So the bottlings that are on our website are website exclusives. We never want to compete with retail shops. So the casks that are on our website are casks that we bottle exclusively for our website.
The online bottles.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those we get emails about, and you send those emails out if you subscribe, and you can click and buy them from your shop. These you have to go get them from the retailers.
Yeah, and I think that
There's a
I
thread in
think
that. Rita, I don't know if you have access. I don't remember if you're in California. K&L is doing a discount for us.
No, I'm actually in Oregon and I cannot ship from KNL to Oregon. I can ship from Remedy in Southern California,
There you
but they
go.
don't seem
So
to have the
the,
products.
Sam, if you message Sam in the chat, he'll be able to tell you who has got it in Oregon or where you can find it.
It's not available in Oregon. We are state controlled. I just
State
checked
control.
it,
Come on, Vadim.
unfortunately.
Rita, message me outside of today and we'll figure something
Okay.
out.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's we get that question a lot, Rita, and yeah, we always try to remain respectful to the retailers. We never want to compete with them. And usually that makes them happy. Sometimes that upsets them when we bottle a wild turkey and they say, "Why can't we get the wild turkey for our shops?" And you know, but we never want to compete with them. We never want to
Usually you just have more people yelling at you because they can't get wild turkey even online.
well, no, we can't get wild turkey anymore anyway. They stopped selling to us.
Well,
So there you
Josh,
go.
you guys have been doing a great job, especially with the scotch. Actually, my first ever virtual tasting society event was with you last November, and I obviously enjoyed it because I keep coming back.
Oh, that's great, Rita. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Um, all
Right,
right. Yeah, let's do the Krugeliki. This, by the way, everybody, this was my Thanksgiving dram. This is what I broke out for everybody who came to Thanksgiving. This is a warm hug. This is like, and this is another thing that I want to point out about our whiskeys. Like when Jason and I select our casks, there are sort of like three rules when we select our casks. A, is it a whiskey that we would reach for? Just personally, as like these are personal bottles. I drink whiskey. These are all open. I drink and I share, right? So A, is it a whiskey that I would reach for? B, is it a whiskey I would be proud to share with someone? And C, is it a whiskey I would open my wallet for? Like, do I feel that it's worth the value? So if it passes those tests, then we're going to say yes to that cask. So in this particular case, like I shared this with everybody that came over for Thanksgiving. This is just a big old hug. 16-year old Krugeliki, first 11 years in bourbon, final 5 years in Spanish oak Oloroso. The Spanish oak is sort of an important bit in this story here. So if you don't know Spanish oak, or you think you know Spanish oak, let's talk Spanish oak.
UF, right?
What's that?
UF, Corcus falcata.
Yes. It's a protected species. Um, it is different from European oak. There is only one cooper in Spain that has access to Spanish oak. He's got contracts to Spanish oak, and that's Miguel Martin. And Miguel Martin uses that wood to cooper casks, to mature sherry, and he sells those Spanish oak casks to distilleries like Glenfarclas, Kilchoman, the Edrington Group, so Macallan, Highland Park, etc., to Single Cask Nation, to ASC, our parent company, and a few others. He doesn't sell a lot. He's pretty
I've actually
selective.
had a Yamazaki that was finished in Spanish oak.
In Spanish oak, so there you go. So Yamazaki.
Yeah.
When I was this is weird. This is gonna sound like some weird like flex or a brag, and it's not meant to be. But in 2019, I was made a keeper of the Quake, just like Sam was made keeper of the Quake 2017. Sam, is that correct? 2017. Um, in 2019, I was made keeper of the Quake, and Miguel Martin was made a keeper the same banquet as me, Sam. I don't know if you knew that one. But yeah, it was pretty special. Anyway, he's the only Cooper who has access to Spanish oak. Spanish oak is so different than any other species of oak being used to mature whiskey. And what's different about it is A, it's incredibly soft wood compared to any other species of oak. A, it's soft. It's also very porous. So high ABV spirit really digs in. It pulls out a lot of color and the deep color for everybody who's listening. But it also pulls out these really interesting deep flavors, very earthy, very chocolatey, fudgy sort of flavors coming through.
Real
And then
quick.
you can hold on, please.
Yep.
Give me one more second here. Then you combine that with Krugeliki's own spirit, right? So Krugeliki is known there as a worm tub distillery. So worm tubs are sort of unusual. So Krugeliki has sort of long fermentation times. They let me back up a little bit. Hold on. I'm six whiskeys in, so I want to make sure that I'm doing this right here. So long fermentations, they create a sort of sulfury sort of spirit coming through. And when they condense the spirit, when you're condensing the spirit as it's coming off the still, you've got two options. The more modern option is the spirit is condensed through what's called shell and tube condensers. Or you can condense that spirit through what's called a worm tub. And a worm tub is sort of this sort of like spiral copper tube, like big copper tube that sits within like basically a pool of water. And that spirit just slowly goes through that copper tube. And you can't really clean that copper tube. And that copper tube builds a film, and so that copper tube can't clean the spirit so well. So it sort of A comes through that copper tube, floats through that film, collects a bit of the film as it comes through, and creates a heavy, meaty style of spirit. If you were to taste Pergeliki at, say, 11 years or younger, it's going to taste very sulfury and maybe even almost peaty, but it's not peated at all. Once it hits 12 years, then some strawberry and cream notes come through. And then as it hits, say, 14, 15, 16 years of age, that's when the fruits sort of get a little deeper into sort of like papaya and sort of overripe guava and things like that. So now you've got these tropical heavy fruits coming in, combined with the Spanish oak and the weighty spirit of the worm tub distillate, and that's your warm hug. That's my Thanksgiving spirit. That's why I chose this.
This is a great description for Galaki because honestly, I certainly like the distillery, but it was never a leaderboard for me. Now it is, and now I sort of understand what the difference between what the dividing line is. It's almost like yeah, warm hug. I love that. It's almost like a cast iron skillet that my mom would sort of build up on the bottom a little bit, which is always sort of like, that's really gross. This tastes amazing. I'm not going to complain. So,
Is that why like the standard distillery release is 13 years?
Is it 13 years?
No, that's not why. So, I mean, 13 years is a sweet spot for them. So that may have been, that may have been an impetus for it. But if you look at all of their age stated releases, they're all prime numbers.
Why?
Which I think is kind of cool.
I'm a software engineer, so now I'm really curious.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me get my glasses ready. Ew, they're all prime numbers.
Point it up.
But yeah, they're 13-year-old. I mean, first off, this 16-year-old is pure magic. Please go to K&L, use your discount code, and buy every single bottle because once this is gone, it is gone. And I really think that this is pure magic. You will want to open this
out, right?
for your Thanksgiving. But but also throw in your shopping cart their own 13-year, because that is a bottle I always have on my shelf, and it is a constant pour for me. A constant pour for me.
Even the 13-year finish in Armagnac is absolutely gorgeous.
I have that one as well. It's great. It's a great bottling. Yeah.
Is it available still, the Armagnac one? Because the
I
age,
don't think so.
I think so. Yeah, it's hard
Yeah,
to find.
it was a one-off. It was a one-off. Yeah.
So I
I
guess
see the 17 Armagnac everywhere these days. Is it 17 or
Oh.
19? They have another one.
Oh.
I've seen it,
Okay.
and I was traveling for work. Every duty free had it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just buy mine first, please. That's all I ask. That's all I ask.
And the 13 Armagnac is still available.
Yeah.
Mhm.
nice.
Did
But
you
I'm
have
not
a
sure
question,
that
Benoit?
I'm not
Yeah,
sure the
I
KL
was-
still have.
I was gonna say it's something that was maybe counterintuitive to me when I first heard about worm tubs was I was always like, oh, okay, cool. Like you're putting it through this long copper tube. So I was always confused because I was like, copper's supposed to remove all the sulfur and stuff.
Mm.
And so I thought, like with the worm tub, it was like, wait, you're getting more copper contact. So how is it you're getting this meaty spirit? But it turns out it's because with shell and tube, you're getting more surface area that has copper contact than you do. And I hadn't heard about the film. What is the film that you talked about in the worm tubes? Actually, what is it?
So here's the thing. You're actually getting the film in the shell and tube condensers as well. It's just a buildup of unclean spirit coming through, right? It's just like a residual muck, if you will. What it's made up of, I don't know what it's made up of.
Okay.
You will get that in the shell and tube condensers. Shell and tube condensers are just slightly easier to clean out.
Oh, okay.
Right? And traditionally speaking, distilleries that have
Don't clean it.
worm tubs don't want to,
Yeah.
because it just adds to it, and they like to sort of accentuate that. So they'll say, wait a second. And I think maybe the Balmenic distillery is a really good example of wanting to accentuate that. So they'll do A, really long fermentations. B, they have short stills that they fill high, and they do really fast distillations so that all of the heavy spirit comes off the still fast and goes through the worm tub slow. So it just comes through as a really heavy, weighty, meaty spirit, right? So they're just trying to really lean into all of the equipment that they have to go for that weighty style of spirit. And I think Kurgeliki is sort of doing the same kind of thing. The difference being, if you've been to Kurgeliki, their stills are massive. They're quite unlike Balmenic, who have much smaller stills.
The other thing I was going to comment is when you're describing, the Spanish oak, and I hadn't really heard too much difference. Two quick comments. It sounds as if what you're saying is since Miguel Martin is the only one and it's a sherry bodega, is it true then that there is no non-sherried Spanish oak because he's using it all for sherry, or is there Spanish oak you can get didn't have sherry?
It's a good question. I know that he also makes he does an he does other products that is sort of like an orange spirit.
Oh,
It's like Seville or Sevilla oranges
sure, yeah.
macerated in neutral
Great.
neutral grape spirit
Okay.
that I think might be mature might mature in oak.
That
I
would
remember
be
drinking some of that,
It'd be
not
worth
knowing that it was
whiskey in it.
95% alcohol.
Say
Oof.
what?
Jason and I went to visit him in 2019, and he had a vat of it, and he was like, "Oh, give that a go." And I was like, "Oh, that smells lovely." And I went, "Whoop." And he was like, "We're meant to sip that." It was 95% alcohol.
Holy shit.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was rough stuff. I'm glad I wasn't driving.
Yeah. And the other comment I was going to make is the way you're describing the QF, it sounds a lot like Amburana or, Mizunara in terms of being porous and leaky.
The difference being the reason why Mizunara is leaky is the wood is very craggly,
Okay.
where Spanish oak is not. Spanish oak is more straight. It's easier to work with from the building of a cast perspective. The reason why Mizunara oak can be leaky is it's difficult to build a water or a liquid tight cask.
Okay. But Amburana too, right? Similar.
I'm not familiar enough with Amberana to talk about that,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Cool.
How did we like the Krugeliki? Yeah, thumbs up, thumbs down. Hopefully, no thumbs down. If there's a thumbs down, then I'm questioning your palates.
It's glorious.
Well,
It's darn.
Vadim.
It's go team. It's go team. Good. Damn.
There we go.
What's good about this is Grigaliki was never on my list, and this has placed it on my list, and now I have more money to spend, and I'm happy to do it. So
Awesome. Cheers. That's really good to hear, Matt. I'm glad. I mean, like when it's something that Jason and I think about a lot. Um, we kind of feel like we're stewards of a brand or stewards of a distillery. Like when we started this early on, one of the distilleries that we worked with was the Glen Murray distillery. And
oh
we
yeah,
would buy, right, we would buy casks from them directly. And I remember there was a cask that we found from a broker early on. And we almost said no to it because we didn't buy it from them directly and we weren't going to taste it. And and then Jason said, let's just taste it. Let's, just for good measure. And it was a 7-year-old, all 7 years in Fino sherry. And it was glorious. Like it was just impeccable, impeccable whiskey. And so we wanted to say yes to it. We wanted to buy it. So we rang them up because we just wanted to be respectful of our relationship. And we said, look, we found this cask from a broker. We think that it's phenomenal whiskey. And they said, thank you so much for calling up. If you believe that it's good liquid, we trust your palates and we will let you do that. Like we really believe that we're stewards of a brand and we want to show a distillery in the best light possible. So the
okay.
fact that you're saying they haven't been on our radar, haven't been on your radar and they are now on your radar, that really makes me happy and proud.
There's
And
a
I
there's a
appreciate you
hunt
saying
in
that.
my morning. I'm going to take a little work time. I'm going to take my lunch to do a little bit of a hunt. Now that prompts the question, perhaps not just for me, but for all. Are there other, and pardon me if it's too tight of a timeline, are there other distilleries, since there are so many popping up and there are so many branches and offshoots and what have you, that we should be looking out for? Like I recently discovered, and I'm definitely not pronouncing this correctly, pardon me, Adamanturin, Ardnamurchin.
Ardnamurchin.
There it is.
Ardnamurchin. That is my second
Ardnamurchin.
favorite distillery.
It's glorious. I
Magic.
it's
Magic.
magic. And I
Yep.
have a bottle in my office, which is this little speakeasy I have, 12 by 10
Yep.
office on the hill,
Yep.
100 feet away from me.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
it's that and 50 other bottles, but I will run out of that in no
Yep.
time. It's madness, and it's not
Here,
expensive. It's cheap.
here,
It's
here's
genuinely not like lying to myself cheap, which I do often. It's actually cheap.
I'm going to tell you right now, buy all the Ardnamurchin you can because
Yeah.
people are going to find out and it's going to be the next Springbank. People are going to find out and they say like, oh shit. And it's going to be the next Springbank because they're producing whiskey in the old school way. And
Yeah.
it's just remarkable liquid. So Ardnamurchin had creeped up. They become my number two whiskey behind Lagavulin. The only reason why they aren't my number one whiskey is Lagavulin was my gateway whiskey. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
Lockley, we already talked about Lockley. I think they're doing phenomenal, phenomenal work. M&H is way up there for me. Um, Kregelki, of
I would
course.
buy I would buy 3 bottles right away if I hadn't just killed my budget and on Edrador. Um,
Oh, yep, they're doing good stuff now too.
yeah, the Caledonia is killing it.
Yep.
Joshua, you guys had a Craig Alec release ages ago. I think it was like a 9-year-old.
Oh yeah, that was a double cask nation. That was 2 octaves, I think, married together.
That one, I tasted that one blind, totally by accident with the official 13. And you could have given me a million guesses. I would not have said it's the same distillery. And it tasted peated, like you said, young. And now I
Oh,
love
that
that
was
I
a
finally,
bourbon cask one. Yes.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And now
Yep.
you explained why that one tasted peated and how why this one tastes good. And that one I was like, this is terrible for my
Mhm.
palate. Did not love it. So
Yep.
this single expression here, the 16-year Craig Alec I've avoided Craig Alec because of that one time when it tasted
Oh
peated.
wow. Okay.
And I'm like,
Yeah,
damn,
that's fair.
now I know it can be good.
So I was speaking with Holly Sidewand, who she runs a shop in New York called First Fill Spirits. She used to be a brand ambassador for the Bacardi brands, Kregeliki, Aberfeldy, Royal Bracala, and so on and so forth. And the way they talked about Kregeliki as a blending malt, as an unpeated blending malt, because they don't have any peated brands in their portfolio, is she said anytime they needed to have something that seemed like peated, they would put a little young Kregeliki into that blend to give it just a little elbow, just a little nudge. And I thought that that was such a cool thing to be doing from a blender's perspective. Yeah, young Kregeliki was never really meant to be released as a single malt. It was meant to be used as a blending component, similar to like some of the Hamden rums that are meant to be blending components to rums, but the rum geeks super love it, right? So like we loved it because it was just crazy and funky and like check this out. So I totally appreciate why you didn't love it. But I'm glad that this changed your mind about
Yeah, so
Fregeliki.
so if I
Yeah.
love this one, just mid to high teens, Craig Alec, and I'll be in a good place.
I would look at so I would look at starting at around 11 to 12 years old, it starts turning into like strawberries and cream notes,
Ooh,
like really unusual. And then 13 and up, that's when it starts to change to get to where we are here. But just know the sherry's doing a bit of heavy lifting. So it just gets fruitier and fruitier and fruitier once you get past 11, 12 years of age.
love that. Thank you. Because there's
Yeah.
I've seen a few independent bottlings of it, and I've always steered clear, and I always pick up a Linkwood and a Diluent, but never a Craig
Yeah.
Alec. So this has really
Yeah.
opened my mind. This is not the first
Awesome.
time that Single
Yeah.
Cast Nation has blown my mind and put me onto a brand, and I'm sure it's not the last.
Awesome. Awesome. Hold
We
on.
do have
Let me see if I can give you some lasers. Awesome. Okay.
Oh, mine didn't register. Come on. No, it doesn't. I don't know how you did
You
that.
did.
Yours is
I
magical.
appreciate the laser dad joke. I just got to say that was a winner.
Um, I invite everyone to turn on their camera for just a second. We're heading into our last pour of the night. And now Bino's not in the shot. Run back, Bino. And raise a glass. We do have a tradition here. We want to
Oh,
raise a glass to you and say thank you so much for spending the evening with us. So
gotta
I
pour
invite
some
everyone to,
whiskey.
yeah, pour yourself a dram, turn on your camera. Jamshid, come back. Pam, are you here? You here with us? I know some people are on the East Coast and they've fallen asleep, but thank you everyone for being here tonight. Thank you, Joshua and Sam,
One of
for
the
making
best.
this happen.
One of the best.
So
Cheers
cheers.
to
Smile to the camera. Got it.
Slanchava.
Angela. We have a nation member who took Slanjava and Mazel Tov, and she made it Slanjatov, which I really like.
I would say Mazel Sla, Mazel Tov. I'm the resident Goyim because my wife is the Israeli. Jew, so my kids are, Jewish as well, and my Hebrew's terrible, but it is what it is. But we've come up with many a whiskey-oriented, Shalom, Mazel Tov, Leatrot, Tov
There you go.
Me'od. Yeah, Tov Me'od. I went Russian, sorry. I also know
Yeah,
Russian.
you even got some of the accent coming in too. I like that, Matt.
25 years married to a
So far,
Jew.
so good.
There you go. Golan approves.
Yeah, Gula. Yeah.
All right. Let's go to Isla, everybody. Let's go to Isla. Let's pour some
Do we need
more.
boots and rain jackets, or what are we getting?
No, not this time around.
Very gentle.
It's an unusual day on Isla. It's sunny. It's 77 degrees. It's breezy. The gorse is in full bloom. We're really, really proud to have bottled a Bowmore, an affordable Bowmore, 11 years old, second fill bourbon hogshead, all 11 years in second fill bourbon. This is the second Bowmore we've ever bottled. The first Bowmore we bottled was online only. That was part of our woodcut series. I think it was our first woodcut series, or our first in the woodcut series, and that was a 30-year-old. Distilled in 89, bottled in 2019. Let me get that bottle. That was our nod to the old Sea Dragon bottling, and you can see the dragon is blowing flowers. It was a nod to the old 80s style of Bowmore. This is not the old 80s style of Bowmore. This is So Bowmore, the Bowmore Distillery, decade after decade after decade, has sort of changed in profile, right? Like in the 60s, it was all tropical fruits. In the 70s, it kind of got a little heavier. In the 80s, it went lavender and like Fun Dip and Pixie Sticks and in some cases soapy and kind of gross. In the 90s, it got very medicinal and almost like flinty. In the 2000s,
Delicious.
what's that?
Delicious.
Delicious, yeah. Um, right, so on and so forth. And then with this one was distilled in 2013. In the 20 teens, it got back to this fruity note, back to these tropical fruits. And that's what we love with this one. So give this one a nose. Oh man, this is all the tropical fruits framed by that beautiful sort of delicate Bowmore smoke. Again, second fill bourbon, one of the things that we love, especially when it comes to Islay whiskeys. I mean, some Islay whiskeys are great with like first fill sherry. Like you get heavy peat with heavy sherry, and it's just like they're fighting each other, and it's just like you're having a battle royale in your mouth, right? And that could be awesome. And then sometimes it's really nice to have a second fill or a refill cask, something that isn't really lending too much to the flavor, it's sort of stepping back and letting the spirit character sort of shine through. That's what this is doing. The second fill bourbon cask is just sort of framing the spirit and just letting the fruit come through on this one. And this is what I look for in Bowmore. I could drink this every day and twice on Sundays and three times on Shabbat. Fifty-six 6.9% alcohol. Oh man.
Yeah, this for me is the best so far. Like, it's delicious.
I know your taste, Spinner. Yeah.
It is.
It's a tough pick today. Can we choose only one?
Oh, you broke up a little bit, Golan. What was that?
I'm asking Vadim if we can choose only more than one.
Nope.
No, you can't.
Pick one.
You must choose one.
And it's so hard to find independently bottled Bowmore too. I know because I have a friend who loves Bowmore, and I'm like, the standard releases are fine, but I want to get a good independent. Even in K&L, it's just like they're impossible to find. So when you put this one out, I was like, snag, got it for her birthday.
Yep. They're hard to find, and when you find them, they're typically really expensive.
Really expensive, yeah. So
Yep.
This was nice.
Yeah, I don't know what the price is on the K&L website on this, but
140.
right, and with the discount, 10%, right?
Yeah.
So 126, something like that. Like for
More importantly, did you say birthday? Someone said, did you say birthday? Happy birthday?
No. I bought it for my friend's birthday. Like that's
okay.
I got the bottle.
Happy your birthday whenever it comes up. But all right. You're good. This is glorious. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, if anybody want to send me a bottle, it's my birthday on Sunday.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Cheers. Is it a milestone? Are you 21?
No, we're just all old.
Yeah, no, the first digit is changing from a 4 to a 5.
Oh,
wow.
shit. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
You're gonna wake up feeling like absolute shit. Welcome.
Yeah. I know, right?
Well,
I'm gonna wake up in the morning.
celebrates.
What the hell did I do? Oh, that's right. I slept on a different angle.
Wait. Like, if it's that birthday, I'm assuming you're having some sort of blowout party, right, Henrik?
Yeah, let's give it done. Let's get it
Actually,
done.
I'm not. We're going to Vegas because I'm presenting at a conference on Monday.
Hilarious.
Lame.
Hopefully a whiskey conference.
And no, I like you. I'm a software developer, so it's about accounting software, ERP.
Yeah, NAB is not this time of year, so it's something else. I mean, I'm in finance software. Is NAB right now?
Yeah, it is.
Wait, is NAB literally right now? Are you going to NAB?
No. I'm going to Directions. It's a partner conference for.
Yeah, no, that's the NAB is a different time of year. Earlier, I used to do.
I know NAB is right now. My son's also in software, and he's going to be in Vegas at NAB.
Yep.
We used to do production music software. So we were at NAB for like 5 years as part of not anymore. I'm with a different company now, but it's such a changing and different environment now. Anyway, so I digress.
Okay, let's go back to jazz.
Yeah, let's go back to.
Can we go back to whiskey?
Yeah, thank you, Jane.
Yes.
I really like this Bowmore. I'm not sure that I've actually had any before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm a little lax on my fabulous Scotch purchases. I really got a huge hit of like dried papaya and smoke when I first sipped into it. I'm just shocked at tropical notes in a Scotch, I think.
That's Bowmore. It's tropical. It's amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely tropical. I couldn't put my finger on it. Thank you. Winner.
Yeah, that's it. And here's the interesting thing too, right? The Bowmore knocks it out of the park in bourbon. In sherry, it's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes in sherry, it's absolutely glorious with like it supports the fruit, and then sometimes it gets earthy and heavy and dingy. And if you like that, congrats, awesome, you've got the best bottling in the world. Yeah, so I was really happy to bring this one in bourbon to highlight that sort of fruity aspect. So Jane, I'm so happy that I may have introduced you to your first tropical Bowmore. That's great.
And it's much appreciated. Which leads me to We have 17 of 21 participated in the poll. Who's slacking on me here, y'all?
Oh shit! I guess I am.
You get to vote if
Oh.
you'd like to.
Yeah, I didn't even see the
Everybody
poll.
can vote.
I am gonna vote. Oh man,
I
Shevitz.
I
Lynn
did not vote because I yeah, there was not one that stood out to me. I mean, or actually, that's not right. There was a couple that stood out to me, and amongst those, I can't pick.
So go alphabetical.
Quit waffling and just pick, damn it.
So he's chickening out.
Yep.
Ilana, did you have a favorite? You can vote.
There you go. Alana, you vote.
You vote.
Okay, while
Forget Henrik. Who's Henrik anyway?
what do you think, Josh? What do you think the upcoming distilleries are that are worth sort of punk rock trying out? More importantly, who do we need to support, and who's good, and perhaps a combination of both?
No, you're asking me 7 whiskeys in this question?
Yeah, that's fair. But you can look at all 7 whiskeys in chat, and we might buy them all, or at least a combination of some.
Listen, I think you named some of them. I think Arden American comes straight to mind. I think Isle of Rasay is another one. They're both Western
Right.
Highland distilleries that are doing some really great things. For Galaxy, I love Tamdu. I think are doing remarkable things.
Did we get whiskey of the year on at least in one category?
Hold on, Bino. I'm making notes. Are you Bino? Wait, who's talking? Not Bino. Okay. M&H. M&H, I adore everything that they do. I don't know. I'm thinking. Oh, they're an independent bottler, but I'm such a fan of what they do. Port Ascaig. They do independently, I like single malt Isla whiskeys. Just knock it out of the park. Ollie Chilton is the blender of that. Like remarkable Isla whiskeys. You cannot go wrong.
Did you write their name out? I'm not getting it. Sorry.
Port Ascaig. Askaig.
Check Sam website. They're all on the same website.
Yep.
Very good.
And we've had
and
Hilton on twice.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. And I'm not just saying this because Sam's on there. These are brands that are remarkable. They are leading the path from a flavor perspective. Like I could be naming the Glenlivets and the Macallans and the insert big names here, but these are the people that are leading from a flavor perspective.
Well, and
That's what I care about, flavor.
Oh, and we did the one with Alistair from Alabrese last week, was it? Or 2 weeks, whenever Vadim was missing. And not just is the spirit amazing, but Alistair himself is amazing. He's just
incredible, dude.
Yeah, so knowledgeable and so cool. So yeah.
And Joshua, to your point,
can we talk about your cat?
Sure. We were talking about the Western Highlands with Alistair, and we're saying like that the Western Highlands seem to almost be creating their own style because all these brand new distilleries a lot of them are on Western, but they're doing the blend of peated and unpeated to create their own flavors that nobody else is doing because they're locked into kind of classic legacy styles, whereas the brand new guys are like, no, we're not going to compete on legacy style, so let's be creative and do whatever we want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really is sort of a style in and of itself, which I think Isla has a style in and of itself. Campbelltown has a style in and of itself. I mean, granted, they're not their own region, but I would argue Western Highlands is a style in and of itself. Nick Neen is a good example. Even though they're not doing peated, they're unpeated stuff. There's connective tissue there.
Well, yeah, and we did a tasting with
right?
McMahon, and they were saying that
Yeah.
they're doing cuts differently depending on if they're going to
Yeah.
bottle it older or bottle it younger, and so they're pulling out different notes specifically. But that also gives them the option of blending those together to create
Right.
completely different flavor profiles.
You know what I dig about all these people too? They give a shit.
Yeah.
That's what I like about them. They give a shit.
All I have to say is,
Um,
you gave Jason the microphone. If you're not holding a puppy or a cat, you can't talk. That's the rules. Jamie, you
yeah,
haven't
Mark,
talked in the
Mark,
last
Mark had a cat. Mark had a cat. I assumed the cat's name was Voivod, but maybe I was wrong. What was your
Bodhi,
cat's name?
but Voivod is okay.
Voivod is okay. Okay.
His name is Bodhi, like the ghost
Bodhi.
town.
Also,
There you go. Yeah.
Lord of the Rings character would be okay. Cool. By the way, I found a whole collection of commemorative Lord of the Rings Pez dispensers at at Goodwill, winter, unopened. Still love it. Yep.
Don't make me break out my Tom Bombadil tattoo.
No, God. No
winner.
one wants to see that. No one.
Exactly.
Total winner.
All right. So Vadim, do we have a winner?
We do. Yeah, let me close this down. All right. Who do you think? What do you think? Which expression do you think took the night?
I want to say that it's one of three.
Okay.
No.
That it's keep your mouth. It's either Blacksboat Bridge, Craigellachie, or Bowmore. It's got to be one of those three.
Okay, that's half of the 7. So pick one.
Fuck.
Craigellachie.
I mean, darn. Sorry, everybody.
It's okay. Everybody here is over 21.
I want to say that it's the Craigellachie.
All right, locked in. The results are in, and you're right. Every time you're right. So Craigellachie and Blacksbow Bridge
Oh,
tied
Blacksbow
first,
Bridge. Okay, there you go.
and Bowmore, Linkwood, and Loch Lomond took second, tied. It's like so perfectly spread throughout. That's crazy.
There you go. Okay. Wow, no one had Royal Bruckle in the
Well,
thing.
I,
Okay,
I
and no one
love
had.
Royal Block. I don't get to vote because I didn't have a cat in my hands. They
All
ran
right.
away.
Okay. Fair. All right.
And it's also, you have to pick one, right? That's difficult. They're all really good.
That is fair. That is fair.
Right. And this is why I think, was it Henrik? He was like, can we pick more than one? So I feel like if we had been able to do a 1, 2, 3, Royal Brackla would have been, on the list. It would have been people's seconds and thirds, right? So I just want to,
Okay.
I just want to show the love to Royal Brackla.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear someone had it at least in their top 3.
Joshua, while we have you here, do you mind talking about the things you just dropped on your website? There's some amazing. Speaking of, we just talked about Arden Merkin. I know you have a bottle available on your website. I know I got a bottle in my cart that I'm going to be buying. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, we just released 2 bottlings on our website. 9-year-old peated Arden Merkin from a first fill bourbon barrel, and then a 10-year-old Tormore that was 6 years bourbon and 4 years sherry. Now, the paperwork just said first fill American oak, but when you taste it, it is full on sherry. So 6 years bourbon, 4 years sherry. So 10-year-old Tormore, 9-year-old Arden American. They're each $100. You can get the pair of them together. There's like a bundle, and then it's 180 for the bundle. So you end up, saving 10% across the pair. It's called Fresh Drops. So that's on our website only. Again, we try to keep our website different from retail, so that's only on our website.
Are there any discounts on the website we should be aware of, or for a group order, I gotta ask.
Yeah, so on our website right now, there's 4 different bundles, where you can save on bundles that, so there's like 2 bottlings together, and you end up saving across across those bottles. And so what we're doing, like, one of the bundles is the two new bottles together. Another bundle is like the Tormore paired with an Aberfeldy sherry cask. Another one is our Ardnamurchan paired with a sherried Kalila. Another one is our Ardnamurchan paired with a 25-year-old Ardmore. And there's another one that escapes my mind because it's 12:19 and I'm 7 whiskeys in. And I also have K&L on the mind, and I personally love for you to think about the K&L ones too. Yeah.
I know we tasted a lot of these online ones back in November, or you guys did, while I was missing out, and the reviews were fantastic. I mean, in
Awesome.
general, not a bad one to buy.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. A lot of them are pretty close to being sold out. I think there's like maybe 10 of the Kalila left. Maybe 9 of the Ardmore left, if memory serves, something like that. So yeah, no, I'm really glad that those have been going over really well. So I'm glad that people have been digging them.
Were you the ones that coined that Kalila is the peated equivalent of liquid? That like it's nearly impossible to bottle a bad Kalila?
Yeah, no, it. I mean, I don't know if we coined it, but I think there is that sort of connective tissue to both of them. That's what I was explaining to Alana before, where Diageo really leans heavily on both Kalila and Linkwood as sort of base or foundational malts for Johnny Walker blends because they're just like stupidly consistent. And while independent bottlers don't necessarily have this agreement with Linkwood, we definitely have this agreement with Kalila, where if you're an independent bottler and you bottle a bad Kalila, you are meant to hand in your keys and close your doors because you failed as an independent bottler and you are no longer allowed to be an independent bottler because you done fucked up.
Fair. I think you're somebody had gifted me a bottle of a local pick of your Kalila. There's a single cast nation Kalila pick done for like SoCal Whiskey Club or something.
Oh yeah.
That was the first peated whiskey I actually enjoyed. As like someone who doesn't like peated whiskey, that was I was like, wow. And since then, my friends have called me cult curious.
So how did you enjoy the Bowmora then?
I actually really enjoyed it. On the nose, it was very gentle peat. It was a little bit of char, like ash on the palate, which I wasn't a fan of, but overall it was fruity. The tropical fruits, like the fruity whiskeys, is really what I like. So it had a little bit of both worlds for me. So yeah, if somebody poured me that, I would be very happy. I would have turned it down. If I was buying a bottle, I'd probably get the Boats Bridge or the Craigellachie. Now I need more Craigellachie in my life. I'd probably get
definitely
that bottle. Or the what was the first one we had? The Royal Brockla.
The Royal Brockla.
That one like set the stage for me. That was like all the things that I like.
One of the things that I like to do.
Those were good.
Oh. Sorry, what was that?
I missed it.
Just that those were my 3 too. Those were 3 excellent standouts in the bunch.
Yeah,
the Black's Boat, Craigellachie, and Royal Brockla.
Yeah.
Look, the way I see it is if you start the tasting with the Royal Brockla, I mean, I feel like everything else is going to be great. I mean, like, because you're setting the bar very high if that's your first whiskey.
Oh, that's great to hear.
But I like the Royal Brockla. Someone here said, they lie. Well, I don't care. I don't care if they're not royal anymore. It doesn't matter to me. They're quite good. So
the first whiskey is usually we call it the sacrificial lamb. Unfortunately, it's a great Royal Brockla, but if you start with it, usually it's like you kill it. I know we talked a lot about the juice inside the bottle, but I also wanted to point. I just was going through some evolution of single cask nation, and found a few bottles in my collection that had totally different labels. So, like this bottle here for the club, and sometimes you would come up with some sort
Oh
of
yeah,
a waxy thing here,
yeah.
or and this bottle, which is happened to be diluting, heavily
Oh
sherry
yeah,
matured.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that the
And
mistake
then
one. Ah,
and then we have
No,
this
that was a
bottle,
different one.
and
Uh-huh.
this is actually Craigellachie 10, and I just retasted it, and it is smoky, like really
that's
smoky.
the one I was talking about. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you probably will remember this bottle,
Ah,
Joshua.
yeah. That's our Hello from the Magic Tavern collaborative bottling.
I started listening to that podcast because of you.
It's so
And this
great.
actually, you gifted to me because this Highland Park, I can say that you can't. I can. Highland Park Sherry Mature, PX Sherry Mature, only 13
Yeah,
years old, but it's just phenomenal.
yeah,
Phenomenal.
yeah, yeah,
So, but
yeah.
I do want to compliment you on your current design. I really like this
Oh
bottle.
yeah, clean.
Thank you so
So
much. Thank you.
evolution, few
Yep,
years behind.
yeah, yep, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it took a while. I feel like we've finally grown up.
Now, I had one question. I've always enjoyed your all Scotch palate because I just enjoy. We have a lot of similarities, so I just know I'm going to like them. But the ones that I've really have been magical for me have been when you found these kind of strange things. So it's, Australian rye or the mezcal that was aged in the wild turkey barrels from years ago. The Oishi
Oh yeah,
Koji whiskey. It's when you guys find these weird one-off the McNamara. You
yeah,
all were the
yeah.
entire reason I actually started looking into them was because of your bottling of it. Does the acquisition make it easier or harder to do those weird one-offs? Because we know it's going to do amazing things for your Scotch selections, but what about everybody else?
Yeah, so that's the good thing. Even though we've been acquired, we've got the freedom to continue to do what we want to do to seek out relationships with new distilleries as we see fit, which is really great. And so some of your examples, like the Oishi, um, that's something we can thank Sam and his partner Chris Udy for that because they import Oishi, and it was through their connection of Oishi that we got those two casks. The Macmira, that was a connection through Jess Lomas, who's our global sales manager. She's got a connection with the distillery there. She's like, she should basically move to Sweden because she just goes to Sweden all the time. Um, and it was through her that we got that. And we're talking to. Are we still recording, Vadim?
We are. You can stop it.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind
We don't
stopping
have
it,
to
that'd be
be.
cool.
Let's close out
Yeah,
the
that'd be
night.
cool.
Thank you all so much for coming. This was really fun. We'd love to have you again soon. See you next time.
Bye.